I've seen more deaths in the last 2 years than I've seen in my entire life.
Well, we believe that most, if not all, fentanyl that's distributed here in the U.S. and in Canada originates in China.
Fentanyl got him. It was his first overdose, and it was his last.
Hold up. All right, guys, food on this side, clothes on this side, please.
Hot oatmeal, coffee, and pancakes. It's breakfast time at the last stop on a bitterly cold Sunday morning.
Any what? No.
This is Kensington in Philadelphia, a city in the heart of America's opioid crisis.
Kensington has always been a hard neighborhood. There's been drugs, violence through here for pretty much forever since the establishment of the neighborhood. But in the last 10 years or so, when the fentanyl hit the street and the heroin really started getting big again, the violence had escalated. So, yeah, get in line, we're here to eat.
Robert Reeve runs The Last Stop, a recovering house where people help each other fight their drug or alcohol addictions.
I always come here for like advice.
In the past few years, they have been facing a new enemy, a potent synthetic opioid called fentanyl.
People will do what they have to do to get their drug, to get their fix, to get well, which means they'll rob, they'll pimp, they'll whore, whatever it takes. Just from where we're sitting right now, if you go 4 blocks that way, 4 blocks that way, in any direction, you would see, I call it the land of the living dead, because it's like zombies. I say we're in a war, and we are. It's a war against an unseen enemy. You can't see it. Fentanyl is about the worst I've seen so far. I've seen more deaths in the last 2 years than I've seen in my entire life.
February 10th of 2017, almost 2 years ago, my significant other, James Diffendarfer, he died of a fentanyl overdose.
21-year-old Anya Lasniak first came to Kensington looking for drugs in 2016. She met James at a Narcotics Anonymous meeting.
James and I, it was love at first sight, you know. When I saw him in this meeting, I just knew that I needed him in my life. And no matter what the capacity was, I just needed him. I never got to know if he felt the same way about me. Toxicology report shows that James died of a compound that was 99% fentanyl. So he was told that he was being given heroin, and he wasn't. So fentanyl got him. It was his first overdose, and it was his last.
We have a crisis in overdose deaths in Philadelphia now. It's been rising for a number of years, and was at its worst in 2017 when we had more than 1,200 overdose deaths. 90% of those involved opioids.
Fentanyl is a powerful synthetic opioid, similar to heroin, but it's up to 50 times stronger. Fast-acting, cheap, and highly addictive. It takes so little fentanyl to get people addicted that traffickers, many from China, have been sending it to the US in envelopes via postal services. Doctors have been using it to treat severe pain, and now drug dealers sell it pure or blended into other drugs like meth and cocaine to boost their potency.
We have a very large number of people who are dependent on opioids now, predominantly because they started with prescription painkillers. So people who were at one time taking OxyContin may have switched to injectable heroin, and now they're injecting a combination of heroin and fentanyl. That makes them more likely to stay addicted, and it also makes them more likely to die of an overdose.
Say I'm a dealer, you're copping off me. My goal is to get you hooked on the fentanyl, because if you have heroin, if it's a 10, right, it could be good, but if you put fentanyl, it raises it higher.
It's ridiculous. It only lasts about 2-3 hours, and you have to get well again. And it's not good. You don't get a good rush from it no more. Your body's used to it, so you try to find better shit on different corners where you're up to 10, 20 bags a day, and you're out here panhandling. You know, like I'm sick right now. I don't know how I'm going to get $5. I was used to make $150 a day doing plumbing work, and I can't get $5 off somebody, so I'm not sick before I go to bed. It's crazy. This thing just took my whole life over. And people say, oh, it's willpower. I lost the power of choice once I put it in me.
Home to 1.5 million people, Philadelphia is known as the birthplace of American democracy and the city of brotherly love. A scene from the film Rocky, where Sylvester Stallone runs up the steps of his art museum in triumph, has become iconic in American pop culture. But its convenient location, bordering some of the most populated states on the East Coast, also made it a perfect spot for distributing illegal drugs. Authorities say most fentanyl sold in the state of Pennsylvania can be traced back to China. Last June, Philadelphia Customs seized $1.7 million worth of fentanyl in a shipment of iron oxide from Suzhou, China. The U.S. indicted 2 Chinese men from Shanghai for fentanyl trafficking in 2018.
We have indicted major Chinese fentanyl traffickers.
Under Washington's request, Beijing has now classified fentanyl as a controlled substance.
Philadelphia is doing what it can. The state of Pennsylvania is doing what it can. I can't tell you how many people in Philadelphia today are addicted to opioids. I can only estimate. Only a small fraction of those are in treatment.
And this picture depicts the amount of heroin or fentanyl it takes for a fatal overdose. So for how much?
Philadelphia is trying to address the opioid crisis by providing Narcan, a nasal spray containing naloxone, a substance that can reverse narcotic overdoses. It's also improving access to medication-assisted treatments, a method of weaning fentanyl users off the drug, with less potent opioids such as methadone and buprenorphine.
And then if I reuse my sweater, I just put it right over his mouth.
We're hopeful that what's happened is that there's so much naloxone out there that even if people have an overdose, it's not becoming a fatality. That we recognize as just a stopgap measure, but we want to do that until these other things like expanded access to medication-assisted treatment and reduced overprescribing bring down the number of people who are at risk in the first place.
I was homeless at one point. I was selling my body to try to make ends meet so I could keep getting high. Obviously, it's highly addictive and super deadly. I overdosed myself several times. Miraculous that I did live to see this part of my life. After James passed, I relapsed myself because oblivion is easier than facing the facts. But it didn't stop it anymore. That same miserable thought about he's gone and there's nothing I could do to bring him back was still there. And I just realized that maybe I'll give sobriety a shot, because the worst thing that could ever happen is maybe I'll be happy. The worst thing that could happen if I keep going is I'll die.
Back at the last stop, Robert Reef believes recovering addicts like himself, who have come back from the brink, know the best way to help. He thinks going cold turkey is the best therapy.
You know, we don't got no fancy treatments. We don't have the doctors, the medicines, because we don't believe in the medicine thing here. Because you can't give me drugs to get me off of drugs. This is hardcore recovery here. We don't baby you. We don't say, okay, it's going to be all right, because it freaking ain't. You sleep on the floor. Detox on the floor. Nobody laughs at you. Nobody busts your chops, because every one of us have been there. We've done this.
When we met Anya, she had been clean since February 27, 2017. She became a member of the Last Stop last year. She got a stable job at a warehouse and has been living in Kensington, hoping to help others.
Every once in a while, I'll go on little missions to go help somebody and see if I could find them, try to bring them somewhere safe. It's interesting to see that the landscape has changed so much. The drug dealers have changed since I was here, and the drugs have changed, and it's not the way it used to be, and people are dying so much, and it's morbid looking, being on the outside looking in. I always equate it to like, they're in the crossfire and I'm in the trenches. And I'm just trying to wave a white flag, but I'm waiting for them to retreat with me.
Every Sunday, spaghetti and meatballs. Yeah, so I'm angry. I'm angry at the government.
I just got that.
They're not looking at you. They're not looking at me. They're looking at numbers, statistics. Well, that girl out there, that boy out there, he's not a statistic. It's a human being. He deserves a chance. It's a social problem, not a pharmaceutical problem. Why are they here? What is causing them to come out? What is causing them to get onto the drugs? And start treating that. If you start dealing with that there, you probably have a whole lot more people not doing drugs.
Anya overdosed again on fentanyl and crack cocaine in January, a few days after sharing her story. She was resuscitated and has stopped using drugs since. For Anya, every day is a struggle, but she has hope that she and others will eventually overcome addiction.
I was thinking about leaving at some point in the future, just to start a life somewhere else. I would still come back, of course, and always be a member of the Last Stop and of Kensington. Always that faithful little blue-haired 21-year-old that says, "Do you want to get sober, everybody?" Chases him around and begs him for help. And, I'm looking for this guy. Here's a cigarette. That girl that they've come to know me as this crazy, obsessed girl with sobriety. She's just in love with it, and she wants me to have it too.